Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now in this video I'm going to show you how to do the fan and cross stitch dress. So we've already done the video for the bonnets and we've already done the video for the blanket. We'll get on and I'm going to show you how in this video it's going to be the dress. So for this little dress, the dress matches the cross fan stitch blanket and the cross fan stitch hat, and I've used this King Cole Finesse cotton silk DK. DK means double knitting. That's a weight 3 if you're in the USA or another country. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do this little bobble collar. It makes it stretchy, so it'll go over the baby's head. It does have a little bit of stretch, as you can see. The first row, to do the foundation row, you're going to do the foundation row with a 4mm hook. My yarn tells me to use a 4mm hook. That's a number 7 in the USA, just for the foundation row. Then you're going to put it down and you're going to go down one size to a 3.5mm in the UK. That's a number 6 if you're in the USA. So you're going to drop down a half size to do the rest of your dress. And that way it's going to make your collar nice and stretchy, so you'll get it over the baby's head and you don't need a button. So to do this, I'll go back, make sure I've got this one in my hand, the larger one. If you're doing a premature baby one, a standard one for a newborn not to 3 months old, so from birth to 3 months, use the 4 hook and then drop down to the 3.5. If you want to do a smaller dress, if you've got a premature baby, then what you can do is you can do the collar in a 3.5 and then do the dress in a number 3 hook with the same amount of stitches for this one, and you'll get a smaller dress. The easiest way to get something bigger or smaller from a pattern is to use bigger or smaller hooks. So what we're going to do is take your 4mm hook. That's a number 7. If you're using a different yarn, then take the hook size 1/2 size bigger than it tells you on the label. So for this, the not to 3 months, you should end up with 26 bobbles, which is 52 stitches. For the 6 to 12 months, you'll have 27 bobbles, which is 54 stitches. For the 1 to 2 years old, you'll do 29 bobbles. So you'll count your bobbles. You'll have got a chain in between each bobble. You have 29 bobbles, and that's 58 stitches in all. And the 3 to 4 years, you'll have 31 bobbles. That's 62 stitches. So write that down for the one that you want. Just rewind the video and then write it down to how many bobbles you're going to need. So we're going to start with the 4mm hook. That's a 7 in the USA. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my slip knot and I'm going to chain 1. Chain 1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make bobbles on this, and it makes a little bit stretchy once you've done it, and you don't need a button. So put your yarn over your hook, and what you're going to do is you're going to pick up one loop from that chain. From that chain 1, just pick up one loop, put your yarn over and pull through the loop, and you've got 3 loops on your hook. So yarn over and pull through those 3 loops. Then you're going to chain 1. So that has made 1 bobble. Yarn over, through a loop in that chain and pull through. So we've got 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through. Chain 1. Yarn over, pick up a loop from your chain 1, pull through and pull through those 3 stitches and chain 1. Yarn over through 1 loop in that chain 1 and pull it through. So you've got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through. Chain 1. Yarn over into the chain with 1 loop. Yarn over and pull through those 3. Chain 1. Remember your chain 1s because you need the chain to work into. And I'm going to do that. You need 26 bobbles. That's 52 stitches. So it's easier to count the bobbles. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bobbles made. And I'll come back when I've got 26 bobbles. So I'm doing a chain 1 and I've got 1 last bobble to make. And do my chain 1. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to slip stitch to the end, to that first slip stitch, to that first chain 1 that's here. Just slip stitch and join that together. So that's your foundation row done. And you've got this little stretchy foundation for the neck of your dress. So if you don't want to put these bobbles in, then just do a chain. You're going to change your hook. Straight away, change the hook from the 4 down to that other one. This is a number 6 hook. That's a 3.5. So we did 1/2 size bigger to do this foundation chain. So I'm using my smaller hook. This is a 3.5. So what we're going to do is we're going to be working into that slip stitch and then into the stitches in between the bobbles. We're going to chain 3. We're going to do a V-stitch. Now the V-stitch is made up of a UK treble crochet, 1 chain and 1 treble crochet. If you're in the USA, that is 1 double crochet, 1 chain and 1 double crochet for you. We're going in to the stitch in between the bobbles. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That's your stitch. Now chain 1 more. That's your chain 1. Now into that same slip stitch here, do 1 more treble crochet. That's a double if you're in the USA. So you've got your 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through. And that makes the equivalent of your first V-stitch. We're going over to the stitch, skip the bobble and in. So we're going to skip the bobble and in to the stitch in between the bobbles, yarn over, do 1 treble crochet, 1 chain and 1 treble crochet. And that's double crochets if you're in the USA. So we're working in between the bobbles. So skip the bobble and go in to the chain in between the bobbles. 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 more stitch. Do a V-stitch. Over to the next one. So you're going to skip the bobble and go in to the stitch beside it. So skip the bobble and into the stitch. Chain 1 and into there. Move to the next one so you can see your little space in between your bobbles. Chain 1 and into the same space. Do your V-stitches. So into the next one, in between the bobbles, chain 1 and do your next one. Oops, do my chain 1. Remember your chain 1, you need your chain 1. Move over to the next one, in between the bobbles. So you should end up with 26 V-stitches because you've got 26 stitches in between your bobbles on this first size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in between the bobbles, there's your bobble, there's your bobble. You're going in that stitch and do your V-stitch. Over to the next one. Remember your chain 1 in between your V-stitch. And do that all the way along. So I've got a bobble left. Looks like I've got another stitch there, but don't worry about that. It's part of the bobble. You're going to slip stitch to the 3rd stitch in your first V-stitch. So count 1, 2, 3. So you'll have a little stitch there to make that V-stitch. Slip stitch to there. And I've got 26 V-stitches with little bobbles in between like this. That's my little tail. You can sew the tail end in to get rid of it if you want. So for round 2, we're going to do some chains around. We're going to do a UK double crochet in between the V-stitches. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. Chain 2 and go into the middle of the next V-stitch. So you'll be skipping these 2 stitches, go into the middle of each V-stitch. So I'm going to chain 1 to begin. And in to there, I'm going to put a double crochet. Now I'm going to chain 2. 1, 2. Skip these 2 stitches and go in between the V-stitch. That's my next V-stitch. And do a double crochet. That's a single if you're in the USA. Chain 2. So skip these 2 stitches and go in between the V-stitch. In between the V-stitch. Chain 2. And in between the next V-stitch. Chain 2. So you're skipping that one of that V-stitch and the first one of that one and in to the middle. In that chain space. Chain 2. And then in to the V-stitch. Chain 2. Now it's these V-stitches and these chains that are going to help expand your dress without the increases. So I've gone into my last V-stitch. I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to slip stitch into that first double crochet I did. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. Just slip into that one. So you've got all your chains and your double crochets or single crochets if you're in the USA and all your little chains. So what we're going to do next is, so remember we're working this way. So we've got our V-stitches and we've got our chain stitches. We're going to do these clusters into the chain stitch. 3 stitches together, then 3 stitches together and chain 1. So into the next one, the cluster's going to be 3 stitches together, 3 stitches together, chain 1 and then into the next chain. So I'll show you that. I'm going to slip stitch into this first chain space. So just do a slip stitch into that chain space and you're going to chain 3. 1, 2 and 3. Into the same chain space you're going to do, if you're in the USA, these are double crochets. If you're in the UK, they're treble crochets. So that chain counts as my first one. I'm going to put one more in, yarn over and pull through and keep the stitch on the hook. So that's 2. One more and keep the stitch on the hook. So we've got 3. We're going to pull through and chain 1, and we're going to go in that same chain space and do that cluster again. So yarn over and in, yarn over, pull through, keep the stitch on the hook. So we've got the one from there, and we've got our first one of the cluster. Yarn over and in, pull through your stitch and keep it on the hook. So we've got 2 stitches on the hook and the loop from that one. Yarn over and pull through. So we've got 4 loops on the hook. We're going to pull through and chain 1 and go to the next section. So do 1 stitch, keep it on the hook, 2 stitches, keep it on the hook, 3, keep it on the hook, then come through them all and chain 1 and do it again in that same chain space. So we're putting our clusters, our little clusters, in the same chain space. So 2 into each chain space all the way around. So it's 1, do 1 stitch, keep it on the hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and through 2 loops and keep that stitch on the hook and do another one. That's 3. So we've got 4 loops, yarn over, pull through them all and chain 1 and move to the next space and put your double clusters in here. 1, 2, keep your stitches on, and 3. So you've got 3 stitches, 4 loops, yarn over, pull through and chain 1 and do another one. 1, 2 and 3. Yarn over, pull through them all and chain 1 and move to the next space. Do that all the way around. You're putting 2 clusters into each chain space. So I've got 26 sets of these clusters, these double clusters. So that was 1 double set into each chain, and I've done my last set in my chain 1, and I'm going to slip stitch to the top of this cluster here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull my stitch up a little bit, and I'm going to do a UK double crochet into this first space here. Just go back into the space here and do a double crochet. You're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. This is round 4. So in between each cluster, we're going to do a chain 2 and a double crochet. That's a single crochet and chain 2 if you're in the USA. It's the same stitch. So in between the next cluster, do your double crochet or your single if you're in the USA. Chain 2 and go in between the next clusters and chain 2 in between the next clusters. So I had 26 sets of double clusters, and I should end up with 40, what's 26 and 26? 52. We should end up with 52 chain spaces if you're doing the first size. So in between, so chain 2 and in between each cluster like this, then the next cluster, then we're splitting these double clusters up. So chain 2 and in between the next cluster, chain 2. This is our big increase doing this. Chain 2 in between the next clusters. Chain 2, do that all the way around for round 4. So I've done my chain 2 all the way around. I've done chain 2 and I'm going to slip stitch to that first double crochet that I did. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. And that's round 4 finished. I'll need to sew in my little tail. And what that is giving you, it's giving you the beginning of the neck of your little dress, like this. It's giving you this first part of the neck. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put a little cluster into each chain. We're going to chain 1 and do a cluster, chain 1 and do a cluster into each chain. I'm going to slip, so for round 5 I'm going to slip into my first chain. That one's just a little bit too far back. I'm going to slip, just pull my stitch up and slip in to that first chain space there. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and do a treble crochet. That's a USA double if you're in the USA. This is a treble crochet in the UK. I'm going to chain 1 and do 1 into the next chain space. 1 and 2. Chain 1 and move to the next one. Put 2 into each one. Chain 1 and put 2 into each chain space. 2 stitches, chain 1, we're doing a little cluster of 2 stitches into each chain space. So 1 and 2, chain 1 and 1 and 2. Then chain 1 and move around your collar. Chain 1, then do 2 into the next one. So I've done my last little set of doubles. I've done my chain 1 and I'm going to slip stitch to the 3rd stitch in this cluster here and pull through. Now again, pull up a little bit and I'm going to do a UK double crochet in this space. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. Now this next row we're going to do a chain 2 and in between each cluster do a double or single crochet, whatever country you're in. Chain 2 and then into there, chain 2 and into there, and then you'll repeat that little double cluster row again. So chain 2 and into the space. So chain 2 and double crochet into the space. Chain 2 and into that chain 1 space. You're going to slip stitch to there. You'll do your last chain 2 over that cluster and slip stitch to there, and then slip stitch into that space and do that row again. Do 2 stitches into each one, chain 1, 2 stitches into the chain space, chain 1 and 2 stitches into the chain space. So we have done row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5 and row 6. So we're going to repeat row 5 after that one. So once you've done that chain for row 6, row 7 is going to be a repeat of this one here. So you'll slip stitch to there and then you'll put a double crochet. You'll put 2 UK trebles, that's 2 USA doubles into each chain space. So 2 into there, chain 1, 2 2 into there, chain 1, and 2 into there, and chain 1 and 2 into there, just the same way we did here. And then I'll come back and show you what to do next. I left you at doing the chain round, the chain 2 round. Then I did one more of those 2 treble crochets in that chain space. That's 2 double crochets if you're in the USA. Chain 1, 2 stitches, chain 1, 2 stitches, all around those chain spaces, just like we did for this row. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you how to do the armholes. Now for the armholes, I will also, in the description and in the pinned comment, I'll put what the stitch count is for the neck, and I'll put the number of times you go around before you chain your 4, the number you've got to skip to make the armholes like this. Now what you're going to need now is either 2 pieces of bright coloured yarn or 2 stitch markers. I'm going to tell you the numbers for this size. This is the 0 to 3 month size. In the description and in the pinned comment with my name on it, I'll tell you what the numbers are for the next sizes up. So what you're going to do is, from this space where you joined your round, you're going to count, you're going to put a pin in. Put a pin in, or a bright coloured piece of yarn. If you don't have a pin, just use a piece of bright coloured yarn. Find the end of this one. You can cut off a piece of bright coloured yarn and slip it through there. If you don't have a little one like this, you can use bright coloured yarn. Count back 12 clusters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Now take that space and fold it over and join it to that one. So in between there you've got 12 clusters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's your armhole. Now what you're going to do now is, from this one, from where your pin is, from here, you're going to count 14. Count 14 clusters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14. Put it in that space. Put your next one in that space. Then you're going to count another 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Take that one, that space, after the 12 and join it there. So what you have, you've got 14 clusters, then you pin, and you've skipped 12 clusters and you've joined it. And on the front you've got 14 clusters and you joined it. You've got 12 for your other sleeve. Now what we're going to do now, we're going to start the body. Keep that pinned together like that. Just keep it pinned together. Now into that stitch, what you're going to do is you're going to do a double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. Going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and go into the chain space. We're going to make 14 chains. So chain 2 and go in there and do your double or single crochet, whatever country you're in, chain 2, you should have 14 into the next one. That's us got 1, 2, chain 2, that's our third one, chain 2, fourth one, chain 2, and there is number 5, chain 2, number 6, chain 2, into that space, it's number 7, chain 2, number 8, chain 2, number 9, chain 2, number 10, chain 2, 11, chain 2, 12, chain 2, 13, chain 2, and into the next one, and that's has got 14 chains. So we've got 14 chain spaces. You're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to go over to this space here, and you're going to do a double crochet in there, like that, and you can take that pin out. And that's you got your first armhole. You're going to chain 2 and go in to this one. We should do another 14. So that's 1, chain 2, into this one, it's 2, chain 2, into that space. That gives us 3 chain spaces. We've got 1, 2, and that one there is 3. Chain 2, it's number 4, chain 2, number 5, chain 2, number 6, chain 2, number 7, chain 2, number 8, chain 2, number 9, chain 2, that makes 10, chain 2, 11, chain 2, 12, chain 2, 13, and chain 2. So chain 2. Now we're going to go into that chain space where your pin is, into that chain space. Now we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn it around, and that's your clip. You're going to go into that double crochet. Can you see that very first double crochet you made? You're going to slip stitch into that very first double crochet in there and pull through. Pull my stitch up. You can take your pin out, and that's you got your 2 armholes made. So from now on we're going to be working around in a circle with these 2 sets of 14 and our chains. So what we're going to do now is, I've done my slip stitch into the chain. We're going to put this double cluster row, we're going to put 2 clusters in each chain space. When you get to the chain of 4, you'll put 2 sets of clusters in there. I'll show you that when we get round. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, yarn over and into there, keep your stitch on the hook, yarn over. Now we've got 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through and chain 1, keep that on the hook, that's your yarn over and into the same chain space, do 1 stitch, keep it on the hook, 2 and 3. You're going to pull through them all and chain 1 and go to the next one and do the same. 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3 stitches on the hook plus that loop, pull through and chain 1, and again 1, 2, 3, pull through and chain 1, move to your next chain space and do the same. 1, 2 and 3, yarn over, pull through all the loops and chain 1. 1, 2 and 3, yarn over and pull through all the loops and chain 1. Do that right around your front. Now I'm at my last chain space. I'm going to do that double cluster of 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, through them all and chain 1. 1, 2 and 3, through them all and chain 1. Now I'm going to move to this chain of 4 and we're going to put 2 sets of clusters, so we should end up with 4 clusters in here. So around the chain, it's 1, 2, keep it on the stitch, and 3, pull through and chain 1. So that's one part of my cluster. That's 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch. Come through there and chain 1. Now we'll do it again. 1, 2 and 3. It's Muttley throwing his ball down. And the last one, 1, 2 and 3. Pull through and chain 1. So we've put 2 sets of those clusters. That's 4 single clusters in there. So it's 2 sets of the 2. Move to your next chain space. You're going to do those clusters again all the way around, and when you get to this chain space you'll put 1 set of clusters and a second set, so you'll end up with 4 single clusters just like you did here. So I've done all my clusters, and in the chain I've done 2 over this chain. Now we're going to slip stitch to this first stitch here to close the round up. Now what we're going to do, in between each cluster, in between each of these clusters, we're going to put 2 UK treble crochets. These are double crochets if you're in the USA. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So go back to that first space here that's closest to you here, and put that's going to count as 1 stitch. Put 1 more in that cluster, in that space, not the cluster, in the space. So you're going to skip your first cluster, and in that space put 2 UK treble crochets. That's 2 USA double crochets. Go to the next one and put 2 in there, 2 into each space. So into the next space put 2, in between the next clusters put 2 stitches, no chains, just 2 stitches, 1 and 2 in between each cluster. and this is the second round of the skirt part. So that big cluster there is the first round of your little dress, and this is the second round of the dress, and then we'll move on to the fan and cross stitch pattern. So this is what we have so far. Now we're going to do the dress, and the dress, the pattern is the same fan and cross stitch that's on the baby blanket and the bonnet. I will have a link to the blanket that matches this and the little bonnet that we made underneath the video, and at the end of this video there'll be a little boxes will pop up, and it'll have the link to the blanket and the link to the bonnet, because they're already on the channel. So I'm going to slip stitch into the top of this to close them around. That's chain of 3. We're doing a slip stitch. Now what we're going to do now is the seam for this little dress is going to be down the side. It's going to be down the side of the dress. Into the same stitch that you've just done, we're going to do a double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. We're going to skip 2 stitches, and into the next one we're going to put a fan of 9 UK treble crochets. That's double crochets if you're in the USA. So skip 2, 1, 2, and into this stitch we're going to build our first fan. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We're going to skip 2 and do a double crochet. That's a single if you're in the USA. Skip 2 and do that fan of 9 again. You're going to do that all the way around. 1, 2, 3, into the same stitch, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and do your double or single crochet. Skip 2 stitches and build a fan. You're going to do that all the way around. So I've done my last fan. Now with these little dresses and this pattern, if you find that you've maybe got 3 or 4 stitches left here, you can skip 3 stitches in between the fans, just the last couple of fans, to take up those extra stitches that you might have, especially for the maybe like the next size up. Once you get around here, there's my double crochet there. I've got 1, 2 stitches left, and then it's my double crochet. But if I had 3 stitches, I could just leave the 3 stitches and slip stitch into my first double crochet of the pattern. If you've got more than that, say if you've got maybe 4 stitches, what to do is, before you do this, skip 3 stitches just to take up the extras. On 1 or 2 of them you could, if you need to, you can skip 3 just to take up the extra stitches, the odd stitches that you might have here. So I've done my last fan, and that's my double crochet. I've actually got 1, 2, 3 stitches left, and then into the double. I'm just going to go into the double crochet. I'm not going to worry about it having an extra stitch here. If you end up with 5 stitches here, you could skip 3 here, do your fan, and then skip 3 here, just to take up those extra little stitches that you might have there. It's not going to make any difference to your pattern. So the second round for this is the cross stitch round. And I'll get my other little dress that I've got here. So I'll turn it up the way, because this is the way we're working. This is the one that I've already finished. So we've got our fan, and we're going to do this cross stitch now. And what you're going to be using is, we're going to be using the second stitch here. We'll skip 2 and use the top stitch of the fan. We'll skip 2 and we'll use the second last stitch of this fan and the second last stitch here. I'll show you that as we go around. So for the cross stitch row, these are the rows that you'll keep repeating, this fan row and the cross stitch. It'll be easier to do the fans because we're going to be doing the fans into the double crochets that'll be on the top. So we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What you're going to do now, you're going to do a UK treble crochet. This is a double crochet if you're in the USA. Skip 1 stitch and into the next stitch put a treble crochet like that. Chain 2. Remember these chain 2s. Skip 2 and do a double crochet up here. So that's the top of your fan. You're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Now we're going to use the second stitch of the fan here, and we're going to come back to the second last stitch here. So wrap your yarn around twice and count 1 and 2. Go into the second stitch of this next fan. Yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over and through 2 loops. Going to chain 2, yarn over twice, and you're going to skip 2 down from this one here. You can skip back 4 if you want, but you can skip down 2 and go through and finish that cross stitch. Chain 2, you're going to skip 2 stitches and in to the top of the fan. Chain 2, yarn over twice, we're going to do that cross stitch again. So into the top of the second stitch in your fan, do that long stitch, chain 2, you're going to go yarn over twice and go down 2 from that stitch, 1, 2, and in to the stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, chain 2, skip 2 and into the top of your fan to your double crochet. Chain 2. Now we're going to do that cross stitch again, so yarn over twice, and we're going into the second stitch in your fan, 1 and 2. So that stitch there belongs to that double crochet. It's stretched a little bit, so 1 and 2 into the second stitch in that fan, do that long stitch, chain 2, yarn over twice, and from this stitch here at the top of this fan, count 1, 2, and you're going in to the next stitch. Do that long stitch, and it crosses over your stitches, and you get these crosses in your stitches. So I'll finish this round off of these cross stitches, and I'll show you the fan round again. Then you can rewind the video and do that cross stitch row and the fan row, and you'll do it to the length that you want your little skirt. So I've done my last cross stitch and I've done my chain 2. So I'm going to skip from that stitch there, skip 2 and in to the top of the fan. I'm going to chain 2. Now we're nearly back at the beginning where we did that chain 4. So what I'm going to do this time is we're going to skip 2 and we're going to do a treble crochet. So after your chain 2 here, skip 2 and do 1 treble crochet. That's a double in the USA. And then we are going to slip stitch to the 3rd stitch in that chain of 4. 1, 2, 3. Into the 3rd stitch in that chain of 4 and slip stitch. And so what we're going to do into that same stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. Pull your yarn through, yarn over and do a double crochet. Now you can put a pin in here if you don't think you'll find where the end of your round is. You can just pop a pin in, and that way you'll know that's the end of your round when you go right around. And still working in the same direction, we're going to skip this part and in to the top of the fan we're going to build another fan. No chains, just build another fan of 9. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, into that same stitch, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Remember and do 9. Now in where your double crochet is, in here, in these 2 chain, so over to where your cross stitch is and do a double crochet in that chain space. Move to the top of your fan and build another fan. Go through your fan, through that double crochet and do your 9 stitches. One, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Make sure you do 9. You can just check that you've done 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're over to the cross stitch and put a double crochet in this chain of 2. Then over to the top of your fan and do another fan. Then you'll do a double crochet in there and then do a fan all the way around, and then you'll slip stitch to this double crochet. Then you'll rewind the video and do that cross stitch again. So I'm going to work my way around and I'll show you one more time how to start that cross stitch in the middle. So I've done my last fan of 9. I'm going to take my pin out of that double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. And I'm just going to slip stitch into that double crochet there. Now I'm going to show you one more time how to do this cross stitch round. Now there isn't a cross stitch at the end here where we're joining it together. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a chain of 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Into the second stitch in your fan, count, that's your stitch 1 and 2. You're going to do a UK treble crochet. That's a double crochet if you're in the USA. Now what you're going to do is into the third stitch, 1, 2, 3 of that chain, put your pin, and that's where you're going to join around, because when you get down to here, what you're going to do is, once you've done your double crochet in the top, chain 2, you're going to skip 2 and do a treble crochet in to your second last stitch in the fan, chain 1, and then you'll join it on to here. You'll join it into here. So I've done my treble crochet. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to skip 2 stitches in the fan and go in to the top of the fan and do a double crochet. Now that's a double crochet you'll build your next fan in. You'll build your fan in that next double crochet. Now I'll show you how to do that cross stitch that we've got here. Chain 2, 1, 2. Now put your yarn over twice and into this fan across here, into the second stitch in the fan. So don't count that stitch there, that belongs to your double crochet. 1, 2. You're going to do that long stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And chain 2. Remember all your chain 2s because you need them to do your double crochets in when you do your fan. Yarn over twice. Now where your double crochet is in this fan, count 2 down, skip 2 and go in to the stitch that's there. Pull through. You should have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops and chain 2. Now from this stitch here that you've worked here, skip 2, 1, 2, and you should be in the top of your fan and do your double crochet. Chain 2, wrap your yarn around twice and go into the second stitch in your fan. Yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, chain 2, yarn over twice and do the other half of your cross. So from here, the top of this fan, skip 2 stitches down and go right through and do your cross stitch. Chain 2. You're going to skip 2 from where you've used that one. So skip 2 and you're in the top of your fan. 2 and in to the top of your fan. Chain 2. Wrap your yarn twice. Over to this one here. So into the second stitch of that fan. Do your cross stitch. Oops. Chain 2. Yarn over twice and skip 2 down and into the third stitch and do that cross. Chain 2. From that stitch that you've used, skip 2 and in to the top of your fan, and that's your cross stitches done, and you'll do that all the way around, and they are there. And then you'll rewind the video and do that fan row again. You're doing a fan into the top of this fan, double crochet, a fan, double crochet into the middle of your cross and a fan, and so on the way, all the way around. So on the dress I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did 8 rounds of the fan and the cross stitch, and I finished on a fan round. You can do more if you want to do more. If you want to make your little dress longer for a christening gown and do this in white for a christening gown, you can go down as far as you want to go. Now, that is the little dress done that matches the blanket and the hat. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you click on the bell icon, YouTube will tell you when I put up another tutorial. So until the next time, happy crafting, and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.